Folks, Super Bowl week, it's a lot. It's here. But you know what? We had to get not just the betting side of things, not just the game side of things. We have to get the two teams that are playing side of things. Chiefs is coming tomorrow. Eagles is here today with me, Chris Pomay, live with CDP Sports. We know each other from our time with the CFL covering. He also does NLL, AAA baseball, all that stuff. Chris, I've been on your show a few times. You've never been on mine. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Griff, for having me on today.
No,
Appreciate it.
no problem, no problem. The main reason why though is just like I said, because you are, and this is the thing I feel like with the Philadelphia Eagles, you don't realize how many fans they have until like you really look into it. Like I didn't know, like there's you from our Argo stuff as well.
Mike
I didn't realize.
Hogan.
I didn't realize Hoagie was a fan. I know Andy Petrillo. There's like, and also like the list of celebrities and just, it's a team that truly just expands. So, one question I want to ask you is, what did attract you in the first place? Was it like Jaworski? Was it Reggie White? Like Randall Cunningham? Is there a certain player that gravitated you? Kind of like how Brady made me the Pats fan that I am today.
I would say it was the late 70s, early 80s. I'm old, by the way. A player named Vince Papale, who they made a
Ooh,
movie about, Invincible.
yep.
And also, it was Vince Papale, but also it was the 1980 NFC Championship game. As an 8-year-old kid, I started watching the NFL around that time, and I hated the Dallas Cowboys. I just didn't like them. And the Philadelphia Eagles, I love that stadium they played in, and they beat the Cowboys to go to their first Super Bowl in franchise history. And I think Vince Papale and that 1980 NFC Championship team was the reason I became a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And I've seen the Eagles play in Green Bay, and there must have been at least 10 to 12,000 Eagle fans there. They have one of the top 5 fan bases in the NFL, in my opinion.
I would say for traveling, it's them. It's Keystone State rival Pittsburgh, Green Bay, New England to an extent is really good, and as well. I don't want to say they're well traveled, but they're more disproportionately placed. But that's the Bills Mafia, where
Yes.
they have fan. Well, it's more or less because they have fans in like every pocket of the United States, where people leave Buffalo and go to like hey, they're going to go to a different city. Like I've seen just that their fans like spurt it up everywhere. But they also do travel very well from Western New York, so that's the sense with it too. I know as well, like you said, to watch them at Veterans Memorial. I believe that NFC Championship game that was a Super Bowl they played against the Raiders, but lost ultimately. I believe
They were the favorites to win that Super Bowl, and they just crapped the bed. They played one bad game in 1980 or 81, and they lost. They lost to the Raiders 27-10. And Griff, it just shows you can be the heavy favorites. It doesn't always mean you're going to win.
we know that all too
Yep.
well from the league you and I love to cover. Because I always refer to what the Chiefs are doing this year to kind of like what Toronto, the Argonauts, did last year, where look, a lot of stuff goes their way, and I'm not discrediting what Toronto did last year, or what Kansas City is doing this year, but you're just waiting for that moment of, is this team invincible and inevitable, or are they going to pick their worst day to have their worst performance?
I feel the Eagles are a better team than they were 2 years ago. I feel this team is better than the Super Bowl team of 2017. They were heavy underdogs against the Patriots and Tom Brady, especially with Carson Wentz out of that game and Nick Foles was in it. Jalen Hurts, I'm going to tell you this. A lot of people don't like him outside of Philly, but he's a winner. He won in college football. He's won in the NFL. And A.J. Brown, I believe, is going to have a big game against Kansas City. Same with Devontae Smith. And to be honest, Griff, I know they lost 2 years ago, but it wasn't like Kansas City blew us out. It was 38-35. The Eagles had 35 points against Spagnoli's defense. The difference in that game was Jalen Hurts unfortunately had that one fumble, and the Chiefs took advantage of it. And that was the difference in the game. I'm not going to make excuses about that pass interference called the Bradbury at the end of the game. I didn't agree with it. But when you make a mistake in a Super Bowl, generally you're going to lose. And I feel this Eagles team, they were plus 21 in the regular season on takeaways. And in the playoffs, the 3 games they've won, 10-0. They don't turn the ball over. So I think if they're going to beat the Chiefs, they got to play a clean game. And I feel the difference between this team and those teams, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, and then they got the 2 rookie cornerbacks in Mitchell and DeJean. So I really feel this Eagles team has a really good chance of winning this game Sunday.
Yeah, that's the big thing with this Eagles team too. Is just that they're not afraid to play anyone. My biggest concern with them, more or less, is just Fangio's defensive schemes. They can be really simple with just running a lot of man and zone defense. I think if he's going to want to win, he's got to be, get a little more creative. Throw some blitzes in there because we know Spags is excellent at doing that. He'll throw the blitz at a given notice. Look at the fourth down play against Buffalo. He said, "Oh, the guy you don't think is going to blitz. Oh, actually, he's going to blitz you and cause that pressure to where then I know everyone likes to say, oh, Dalton Kincaid dropped it. No, Josh Allen is forced into an uncomfortable situation. And when you make a quarterback uncomfortable, they're going to make mistakes like that. It's kind of like what you're saying with Hurts. And then also you have a Philly team coming off an NFC championship where, look, it's not that they didn't make any mistakes and they didn't force Washington to make any mistakes, but Washington made their own mistakes and they capitalized and pounced on it. Everything from some of the plays Jaden made in that game to the Frankie Louvu just trying to go wee and jump over the pile like Will Smith getting kicked out of his house in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You know what I mean? To where it's just, hey, you got to keep that same energy going. But at the same time, too, with this Eagles team, I know there was the loss to Washington, but these are two teams as well that pretty much since the beginning of the year, I know they had a couple games, the one against Atlanta on the Monday night.
Yeah, they gave that away.
Yeah, they gave that game away, and then Tampa was just
a bad game.
That was a bad game.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing. They had a bad game this year.
Yeah.
You can't say that Kansas City's two bad games were bad games. They lost to Buffalo and Josh Allen, and then their other loss was, look, no one played and they got whooped 38-0 with their backups playing the Denver Broncos, who were still playing their starters because Denver had to win that game to get in. So it's very interesting. I don't think there's any, I know everyone's looking at the three-peat storyline, to which there's the Eagles triumph storyline trying to win their second in a 7-year period. But the one thing we'll say too with comebacks though is just, look, today's the comeback, probably the greatest comeback in NFL history in 28-3 against the Atlanta Falcons, not to toot my own horn. But we know that, look, these things are possible. The way I look at the 2017 team as well is just more than anything, look, at the end of the day, they were the better team in the better game in Super Bowl 52, but they carried that underdog mentality the whole playoffs. The game against Atlanta, no one counted them. No one counted on them. Yeah. They boat raced the Vikings in that game 36-7. That was because Minnesota was coming off that the only time in NFL history where I was truly left speechless at the end of a game where the Patriots weren't involved, where, look, the Minneapolis Miracle with Stephon Diggs and Case Keenum, where, look, we don't know what happened there, but there's just another trial and tribulation of the Saints. And then the Super Bowl, Eagles, look, they were the better team on the better day, and when it's time to make a play, Derek Barnett got the strip sack on Tom to secure the victory. So we need to see that from Philadelphia, I believe, to win. But the other thing, too, is that they'll leave the door open. It's one of those things where it's you don't want to just put your foot on the gas a little bit. You got to go full pedal for 60 minutes if you're going to win this game.
And they didn't do that in Super Bowl 57. They were up 24-14 at halftime, and they let up. And by the way, their last meeting was 2023 at Arrowhead, and the Chiefs were up 17-7 going into the fourth quarter, and the Eagles rallied to win that game. I know the rosters are a little different from then, but Jalen Hurts has proven he can beat Patrick Mahomes in a big game. Obviously not as big as the Super Bowl, but he can do it. By the way, one thing about the Eagles defense, people say, oh, Washington gave away the game, but Philadelphia's defense is taught to punch the ball out. If you watch the Eagles secondary or their special teams, these guys are told by Sirianni and the coaching staff, punch that ball out. So as much as everybody wants to blame Washington for those turnovers, you got to credit Philadelphia. And they took advantage of them. They didn't just get no points or kick a field goal out of them. They capitalized. And that's what they got to do against the Chiefs. If they can get even 1 or 2 turnovers against the Chiefs, put points on the board, especially 7 points. The one thing I would say Kansas City has an advantage is coaching. Andy Reid over Sirianni. Sirianni's a great coach, but they get an edge in coaching. Quarterback, Mahomes has got his 3 Super Bowl rings, so they get the edge there. Special teams, I would give a slight edge to Kansas City because I like Butker and Matt Araiza, who the Bills cut as a kicker. I think Kansas City has those advantages, but offensive line, defensive line, I think Philly's stronger. And obviously the running game. I know Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are decent, but they're no Saquon Barkley. And receiving-wise, Philly's got the better receivers. And I know Kansas City, I would give them a slight edge with Travis Kelce over Dallas Goedert. But honestly, I think Jalen Hurts is healthy. I think you're going to see a lot of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley. And that's going to be a key right there, Griff. Can the Chiefs contain Saquon Barkley? Nobody has this year.
That's the thing, too, because I know the Chiefs, I believe, in 18 straight playoffs game have not allowed a 100-yard rusher at all. So that's going to be the big thing as well. I really think, and people have been saying this because the Jalen Hurts we saw in Super Bowl 57, you haven't seen too much of since that game. I'm not trying to say he's been bad, but you know what I mean, where he really carried the team on his back. I think if they're going to win Sunday, he's going to have to do that because I've been saying this about the AFC Championship game, but Mahomes didn't need to be that killer that we know he can be. You know, he didn't need to make a play when he had to make a play. He just did his thing and he let the defense take care of it, which, if you ask me, that's a really scary thing for anyone, let alone the Philadelphia Eagles going into the Super Bowl Sunday. You have a quarterback who's vying to be in the top conversation for greatest of all time. He's already on the precipice of it. But then you have a Philadelphia team where, look, they can stop the three-peat, and I'm pretty sure the only people who don't want to see the Eagles win are people in the NFC. But besides that, there's a lot of people out there that are wanting Philadelphia to win. But at the end of the day, whoever does win, all I ask for is that we get a good game. That's all you can ask for in a championship game. I've been starting to say this, but NFL football goes away for about 6.5 months.
Yeah.
But we have 3 months, Chris, until the sport you and I get to cover, the Canadian Football League, returns. So we can go back to Super Bowl in a bit, but I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about the CFL as well. I'll be doing more content on that coming up. But what have your initial impressions been on the offseason so far? Like, besides the Edmonton Elk robbing a Brinks truck or a bank, what's been the most impressive thing to you that you kind of seem to have your eyes on going into the season?
I like Hamilton's moves. I like Hamilton, and I like the fact that they've got a new GM and a new president in there. I really think the Tiger Cats are going to be improved. I think Edmonton should be a playoff team next year, if not one of the best. I really think Edmonton can be up there. I like their moves. I think Saskatchewan's going to be a better team. BC, I'm not sure about. I think Winnipeg, I'm going to say this and I'm going to get criticized, but I think this is the year Winnipeg takes a drop off. And as for Calgary, I think Calgary will be improved, but I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I think the West is up for grabs this year between Edmonton, Saskatchewan, and Winnipeg, in my opinion.
So my thing with Calgary is I feel like Calgary's in this like last dance situation with Dickerson where he fired his staff and it's just basically him showing Huffnagel and the rest of the brass there, hey, and also the fact that they're hosting the Grey Cup next year as well. That's the other big thing with them too. But they're kind of showing that like, hey, we still got to get it done. They only won, I think it was 5 or 6 games last year. So for them, there's nowhere else to go. But I can't see this being a 10, 11, 12 plus win team. I can see them being somewhere between 6 to 8 wins. Edmonton, I think they're going to have what Saskatchewan did last year to an extent, because if you remember Saskatchewan last year, got off to an incredibly hot, that honeymoon phase died instantly. Like people were like already being like, okay, what's Corey Mace doing? What's he up to? Because like you had games like the one in Toronto, the exhibition game, that you know there were some mistakes made and he just didn't like kind of got out coached by his buddy Ryan Dinwiddie. But BC, like you said, they're a team that truly intrigues me because last year was supposed to be the year they go for it. They really fell off down the home stretch of the season. They honestly didn't play well in the Western semi. But this year, I want to see what coaching is and what a full year of Nathan Rourke did. Because last year, I feel like it was just like inserting him into the lineup But like you said with Edmonton, I like Edmonton not for the moves they've been making and me joking about robbing a bank to sign all those guys. But I like what Mark Kalama is about. I'm not going to try to compare the two, but he kind of gives me that like Dan Campbell vibe where he's going to go in there and be a guy that players want to play for. Like they're going to go hard to work for him. They're going to be hard to play against. They're going to be that team that's no longer I don't think there's a slouch really in the league this year, a team that like you can walk all over, you know? I don't think there is that. I don't think there's going to be a team that's like, look, there's going to be teams that are going to be bad. Like even look, Hamilton last year, they got caught fire towards the end of the season. But for me, it's what I know. And everyone's like excited about Kenny Lawler going there. I need to see what they do on the defensive side of the ball because their defense was terrible last year and it cost them way too many games.
Absolutely. Speaking of the Argos, I know they brought back Wynton McManus. They brought some guys back. That's great. What I'd be concerned about as an Argo fan and covering the team is they lost a lot of guys on their defensive front four. So Jake Ceresna went back to Edmonton. Brinkman went to Edmonton. They lost some good players. I know the Argos, they got hit bad last year in free agency and they still won a Grey Cup. But I think this year, I think they're going to take a little step back. I think they're going to be competitive and they should make the playoffs. But I think the East, Griff, Hamilton is going to be better. I just got a gut feeling they're going to be better. Ottawa, I think, is going to be improved. Montreal, I think that East is not going to be easy to win next year, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree with you there. I actually was a part of Winton's media availability Monday afternoon. He had him and Chris had like a quick 15, 20-minute Zoom conference. It's on YouTube. It was pretty much Dunk was in there, Hogan, David, Frank, and I, like the five of us got to talk to him. I like what he's preaching. I always said it was important to bring him back. I really like Arbuckle coming back too. I don't know what QB3 is. If I had to think it's probably going to be Scott. If you had asked me, I don't think Dukes is going to accept a quarterback 3 role. I think he's probably going to end up.
Is he still under contract or is he a free agent right now?
The two free agents of question that they still haven't done anything with is him and Kadeem Carey. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. I think with Toronto too, they brought in the one guy from they brought in someone from BC. They brought in Cameron Judge. They brought in the one guy in the Dejan Allen trade. They let Dan Aboye go, which look, I know for his family is a bit of a bat. Like, no, it wasn't nice to see just because we know how tapped in his family was to the team. But I think for the sake of playing time and McMahon getting extended, and I think if they do bring back Kadeem Carey, he was always low man on the totem pole. But with Toronto, though, I'll say this. They're going, as long as Dinwiddie's coaching there, I'll have faith. And because, like, look, last year, too, they were doubted. No one believed in them.
Yep.
They screwed around and won a Grey Cup. So I can't ever write them off. It's kind of like Winnipeg. I know you were saying Winnipeg, they might take a step back. I can see it too. But like last year, look, once you started doubting them, they just came in quick and fast.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah. Ottawa's the team that most intrigues me, though, because we saw last year what happened in the East Semi. They were kind of the team where it's like, this year's about growth and maturity. Can you carry that over? That's my big question. I know they brought in Geno Lewis. I know they re-signed a Darius Pickett, friend of the show, friend of mine. But the big thing with Ottawa is just, can you handle that pressure? And also, will it not pour rain during all your home games? And then there's one team we haven't talked about yet. That's Montreal. I don't know what to expect from them. I know they have faith in Davis Alexander, but they have a couple receivers, Mack and Philpott, coming off injury. They still have a really good defense.
McLeod Bethel Thompson. I think he's still serviceable.
I think he's there more to mentor than anything else. He'll jump into game action if Alexander, knock on wood, were to get hurt or anything like that. The other reason too, I'll say this, for signing Arbuckle back is important because we could tell by around the time of the Hamilton game, Dinwiddie didn't trust Dukes to throw the ball down deep. I think that's why you bring Arbuckle back, especially if Kelly's not ready to go by the time you and I are walking around the University of Guelph campus in about 3 months.
They did bring in a rookie quarterback. I just can't remember the name of the rookie quarterback. They just brought him in. He's an American. I just can't say. I think his last name is Rush. It's not the guy from the Dallas Cowboys, but I think they did bring in another quarterback. I just can't remember his first name.
All good. Also, the one thing I like too was like certain guys I re-signed, re-signing Janarian Grant, re-signing Ryan Hunter, guys who were the best at their positions last year as well. I'm trying to find the name too. Also to like keeping a guy who I thought was going to go out the door in DeMonte Coxey, but I think losing Mackay Polk, I think really egged them on to get that deal done. That was my big thing. One thing about Toronto, though, I do like going into this year is the schedule.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, Griff, 3 Friday night home games and 6 Saturday. I do like the odd Saturday night game at 7:00, but really the schedule is really very good for the Argos. 3 Friday night home games, 6 at 3:00. I think all 6 Saturday home games at 3:00.
Yeah, there was about I think 2 Saturday night home games, and the rest are 3 or 4 starts.
Okay.
I like that. The only thing, I'll be honest with you, their CNE game is a Saturday afternoon. I much liked it last year when it was a Thursday night game, just because the CNE is not as packed. We know going in on a Saturday afternoon, it's going to be busy inside the stadium, but it's also going to be a zoo outside of the stadium as well. And especially by the time, the game gets done, we're all there. Also, I really wish they had put Saskatchewan in that spot, not BC, because we saw last year that Saskatchewan helped build attendance up, but also a 3 or 4 o'clock start is going to drive attendance. Like last year's home opener, it was a 7 p.m. kick on a Sunday night. You're not going to get people out to that, especially when kids are still in school. Meanwhile, you put that game at Saturday afternoon, it's a perfect opportunity. The Jays started doing it a few years ago. They did 3 o'clock home. They would do 3 o'clock home first pitches. You start doing that, you can say, hey, get your evening started with the Argos. Come to the game. Then you got the rest of the night to do whatever you want. And then for people like you and I who have to travel a bit of a ways to get there, instead of getting back home at like 1 o'clock in the morning or midnight, we're getting back home at around
8
this time,
o'clock. Yeah.
8 o'clock, 9 o'clock.
Yeah. That's true. That's a good point. One thing is the Argos need to do more marketing, and I know their hands are tied by MSLE, but they got to market the team, let people know. And one thing too, Griff, I know the CFL is a business like the NFL and stuff like that, but my teams, the Eagles, who's on the team, the Buffalo Bandits, lacrosse, Josh Byrne, Dane Smith. I could probably name the whole team. The CFL has I know it's a business and free agency, but that's why I was so glad they brought back Wynton McManus. It's just when I grew up as an Argo fan in the 80s, I knew who the players were: Conrad Trolley, Cedric Mentor. You know what I mean? I know that it was a different time back then, but it's hard when you have such a high turnover rate of players and stuff like that. It is a business, but it's nice to see them bring back someone like Wynton McManus, because that's how you market the team too, with star players. And then young kids see these guys and they're like, yeah, I want to go to an Argos game. I want a Wynton McManus jersey. So I don't know if you totally agree with me there, but it's nice to see them bring back some familiar faces.
I do too. I do as well. I will say this as well. I know you weren't there, but I was also like you and I both weren't at the Grey Cup in Vancouver, but I went to the rally at Maple Leaf Square. I managed.
How was it?
It was good. It was cold. A lot of champagne got on us. That was unexpected, and almost saw Dejan Brissett kill someone with a bottle. But that's neither here nor there. But the big thing with that was too, they were trying to really sell people on coming down to the game. Like Keith Pelly was doing it, Ryan Dinwiddie was doing it, Pinball Clemens was doing it, where it's just like, hey, doing this, this, and this. And also, I know people were kind of like struggling for the schedule to come out, but you know what? The fact that it's out now and there's people still like this, the only complaint I have with the schedule is the fact they don't open the season at home. I'm sorry, but 2 years in a row of not having your champ open the year, like Saskatchewan, Ottawa is going to be a very compelling game, but you should have that Friday night spot, have the Argos raise the banner on a Friday night.
One thing I would say, it must have had something to do with BMO field availability, probably with the FC.
I'm going to check that out. I'm going to look into that right now, because that's the one thing, too, I know why the schedule was slightly delayed because of that.
Because the Argos are, whether we like it or not, the FC get first dibs on all the dates there at BMO.
Well, it's not even it's not the first dibs thing, but their schedule comes out a lot. Their schedule comes out a lot sooner. Like their schedule came out in December.
Yeah.
So let's look here.
That's a good point.
No, they're not playing. They play May 31st, which at home, which the 30th, you and I will probably be at Alumni Stadium in Guelph. But even I just realized too with the Ticats, I don't know if you saw the full schedule, but I'm probably going to go to both preseason games, considering the other one's down the road in Hamilton.
Yeah, I think this year I'm going to be doing more of the Bison's games down in Buffalo, because I have a full media pass. The only problem I just have to worry about is the political situation down there. So fingers crossed. I'll leave it at that with that.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. I was down there about a month ago I was there literally a month ago. I was at the Sabres Capitals game, and everything seemed fine then, but that's before everything took over. But you know what is what it is. But no, the big thing with the league right now is just marketing stars. The one thing they are doing though, that the Super Bowls. So I talked about this in my Super Bowl. The last episode I did was about Super Bowl betting, and basically my co-host was my guest of the show. We're basically talking about how the Rihanna Super Bowl wasn't the best. He didn't like it, and I basically tell him look, they do the NFL does the Super Bowl for the people who don't care about football the rest of the year.
It's corporate people.
But it's not even that. It's just bringing in those eyeballs for those 15 to 20 minutes, which I kind of applauded the CFL for doing. I know a lot of people were pissed off in Vancouver, but oh, the Jonas Brothers, this and that. But the attendance, the ratings for it spiked because, hey, you're bringing in a whole new audience. And there's also a case, too, where there's a lot of people at the game who are just there for the Jonas Brothers, which I know people are going to say, oh, this and this. No, it's the league doing the right thing. Now, this year, will they get someone big because, hey, you have to go to Winnipeg in November? I don't know. But you know what? Time will tell.
Yep, totally agree.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll say about the CFL, too, right now is with Hamilton, like I say too, I know there's a lot of people that was on Bo Levi Mitchell to win MOP last year. Me, myself, I was off of it just because I had the belief if you're going to win an award like that, your team has to be in the playoffs. And Brady Oliveira was the
I
reason
totally agree.
why. Brady Oliveira was
I
the
t-
reason why Winnipeg
yeah,
got to the playoffs.
yeah.
And you know what? Hey, we're making ties here for everyone's, oh, why are you talking about Canadian football Super Bowl episode? Because guess what? The Winnipeg Blue Bombers quarterback happened to be Travis Kelce's college roommate. Fun fact of the day.
But I totally agree with you. Bo Levi Mitchell had a great year, but he didn't get his team in the playoffs. It's not all his fault, but you can't give the most outstanding player to somebody who missed the playoffs. My question for you, Griff, Bo Levi Mitchell is not getting any younger. Do you think he can still have that kind of year this year in Hamilton in 2025?
So I think that's why they're bringing in. They brought back Bridges. I know that they brought back Shamar Bridges, or there's another receiver they brought back. I know they were the Ticats fans have been on my Twitter a lot lately, just from CFL stuff. They're really excited about what's been going on. Kenny Lawler, I like the signing, but I don't know if I like the price tag. The
How
dollar
many
amount,
how much how many years, how much money did he get,
I think it
Griff?
was like 200. I think it was over 200. I know that. It was over 200. It was over 200K. I think it was 2 or 3 years. I think it's more paying for the name than the talent because it's like, hey, we're gonna sign Kenny Lawler. We're gonna bring him in. It's the same thing too. Because Ticats, you'll see jerseys from here, there, and everywhere. Like, look, you and I, as people who are connected with the Argos, we're not supposed to like them, but and look, there's some Hamilton fans that have rubbed me the wrong way at games. I'm not going to get into that here,
No.
but they are passionate. You can't take that away from them. It's like the
No.
people who don't like the Eagles. They're
Yeah.
that, and that's what we're doing. We're tying stuff in. But no, my big thing with I went on a complete tangent. What was your question for me again?
Just with the Tiger Cats with Kenny Lawler and
Oh,
and the contract they gave him.
and no, it was Bo Levi. So here's my
Well,
thing.
yeah,
I think they're banking on it, but I wouldn't bank on it until I see it. You know, it's like Bo Levi Mitchell right now is like it's like buying a used car. You still want to
you're
make sure. Hey, it could be it could be a used BMW, but you want to make sure the car turns on, the engine's working, the brakes work, the steering's fine, the AC's fine. He has to get in there. Is he still going to be able to chuck it for 5K? Is he going to be able to, be aware of situations because defenses are getting better around, and we're seeing it with Ottawa. Montreal's defense is still going to be there with, I'm blanking on his name. It's very French, but that Montreal defense is still very scary to face. And Toronto, I know we've saying the defense got gutted, but Kevin Ivan's still there as their D coordinator from last year. I know Will Fields is now in Ottawa. That's another thing to watch for with the Red Blacks. And the fact, too, that they have a running game now. That was the one thing with Ottawa last year that was bad. We saw in the playoffs, Drew Brown had to sling it because they couldn't run it.
well, yeah, they had no running game at all. They were one
Yeah.
dimensional.
So going back to answer your question, I want to see it because last year, too, I do the betting videos for the CFL Weekly, and I was like, lock of the week, Bo's going back to Calgary for his first ever start. He's going to win. The opposite happened, and they got off to that really bad start. Like the 2 games they had, the back-to-back they had against the Rough Riders last year. So if they do another thing and they start out, terribly, and then there was the game where it's like, hey, BC comes in and whoops them. And then they had the game against Toronto where it's like, hey, that's where things started to go right. I need to see them get off to a hot start before I buy hype. I want to, it's like I said, you want to take the car for a test drive before you buy it. You're not just going to say, hey, yeah, it works. It's fine. No, that's my logic on Bo. I want to see it before I buy it.
I'm still curious about the Argos quarterback situation. Obviously, Chad Kelly and Brian Scott. Does he have a contract with the Argos right now?
Last I've heard, no. The only 2 quarterbacks under contract at the moment are Arbuckle and Kelly.
Kelly.
Excuse me.
So
Chad's recovery timeline. So he was at the parade. He was standing on his own, but he was heavily on painkillers and alcohol. I don't suggest combining the 2.
no,
But I think his timeline was to be ready for camp. I haven't heard anything. I think we'll hear probably more closer to, so I don't think we'll know anything till the springtime. But with having Nick there, there's that security blanket of, hey, if Kelly's not ready to go to start the year, or I'll say this too, I don't need to see Kelly play either preseason game. I don't.
no, no.
Let Nick play. Let whoever else is in the quarterback room play. Like last year too, Cameron Dukes got limited reps in that game in Guelph, and then Brian had that unbelievable touchdown throw to Kevin Mittal, which look, there's a lot of people out there that are rooting for Scott, and we'll see what happens with him. Last I know, he's in.
He has one thing, Griff. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but one thing about
That's fine.
I like both quarterbacks. I like Dukes. I like Scott, but I would say Scott has the advantage of having a better deep ball than Dukes, from what I've seen.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. We saw it in the game against Montreal when Toronto lost. Brian got brought in garbage time, and then, like I said, in the preseason game too against Hamilton, he had that one play where I actually got it on. You and I were talking, and I was recording it, and it ended up getting picked up by a bunch of like CFL. I think it was like Twitters and TikToks and stuff like that. So, that's the thing with there. I think it's going to be one of those things once every other quarter, because that's the thing with the quarterback situation in this league right now. Every room starter's figured out. Like you got Alexander in Montreal, Drew in Ottawa, Kelly presumably in Toronto, Bowen, Hamilton. Winnipeg's the questionable one just because we don't know what Zach's going to do yet, although I feel like he is coming back.
I think one more year. One more year because they're hosting the Grey Cup. My gut feeling is he comes back for one more run, kick at it, the Grey Cup.
Yeah, one more kick at the can. And then you have,
yeah,
this is a situation I really like. Saskatchewan, Trevor Harris starting, but you have Jake Mayer backing up. Jake Mayer was under a lot of pressure to perform in Calgary. I spoke to Stamps fans in 23 that weren't really sold on him. Now you have a quarterback who can just learn from an older guy in Trevor Harris. Calgary, Vernon Adams Jr. We'll see how that goes. Also, I think Matthew Schultz is now in Ottawa as well. I think he just signed with the Red Blacks, so he's going to back up Drew. Because I know Jeremiah Masoli was cut from Ottawa.
So is he gonna try to hook up with another team, or do you think he's done?
I think he's done. I just don't. I hate to do this. I just think it's one of those things. His body can't keep up. I feel so bad for the guy. He's worked his ass off. He's done everything he could, but he can't stay healthy. It's just one of those unfortunate. It's one of those unfortunate realities of playing football.
Yeah, yeah. Too many serious injuries.
Yeah,
I think two ACL injuries at least.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just you feel bad for the guy, but at the same time too, it's just got to pat him on the like you're saying with youth baseball. Sometimes you got to make the call. Just say, "All right, kid, it's enough." Edmonton's the fascinating one just because you do have Fajardo there, which I'm really interested to see if he accepts a backup role or is he going to start over Ford, which I wouldn't do. But Cody has shown that he can win in big moments. That silence got doubted in 2023. And then,
I think Ford will go into the season as a starter.
But if Ford slips, you have a insurance policy waiting for you.
That's how I see it.
It's basically the same thing. It's like the reverse of what the Falcons just did, where they started Kirk Cousins, but then Michael Penix was brought in as an insurance policy. It's the same sort of thing. It's like, hey, we're going to start you, Trey. Trey, if you get off to a bit of a rocky start, you know what? We'll go back to Cody, and then you can learn under Cody. Because with MBT, there was that pressure. I don't think that there's that pressure there for Ford that there was with MBT, that there is not with Cody. Excuse me.
One thing is Edmonton's not paying Kirk Cousins type money to Cody Fajardo.
No,
that was a huge mistake on Atlanta's part. Overpaid Cousins.
I mean, if the CFL players are making what Kirk Cousins is making, then I should be making a lot more too. And then BC, they just intrigue me because they were the team last year where it was, you're hosting the Grey Cup, you have this roster, you're ready to go. What'd you do for your first game? You let Toronto, who you had on the ropes and were ready to give that knockout punch to, you let them come back in and you gave them second life. And I commended Cameron Dukes for that game and Ryan Dinwiddie that they did not back down and they did not give up. He had the fumble 6, brushed it off, and they put that game away aggressively. They were also a heavy underdog in that game as well. So now with a new coaching staff, I think offensively, I think this is what BC and Toronto could be this year. They can outscore their problems, but if they cannot put up offense, their defense, I want to see if their defense is able to handle the load when you can't get that offensive firepower.
And I'm going to make a prediction. I last year I said the Argos were going to drop from 16-2 to 10-8, and I got laughed at by a lot of the Argo fans. We're going to win 14, 15 games. I said no, the Argos are going to drop off to 10-8, and they sure enough did. And I feel right now, I'm going to say it again, this looks like a 10-8 team, 11-7 team.
You know what? You think about it, you almost prefer that because the last 3 Grey Cup champions have all been teams that have
dominant records.
Montreal was 11-7, 0-7 against the teams that were in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So sometimes winning isn't everything. And also, I say this too about the CFL because the NFL does this award, right? Where coach of the year goes to the coach that no one expected anything from. CFL, it's the best coach. I still
Yep.
say this. I know he won in 23. I still say Ryan Dinwiddie had a better coaching job in 2024 than he did in 2023. That's a
I
take
agree.
I will
I
stand
agree.
by.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And
I
you're
also
right. And you're right. As long as Ryan Dinwiddie and that coaching staff's in place, okay, they've got some new players, but I think they'll still be. I think they're still going to be a 10 or 11 win team this year. They'll be up there.
Yeah, like if I had to put win totals on teams right now, I don't think first place in the East is going to be like a crazy record, like a 14, 15 win team. I think I can see like Hamilton, I can see anywhere from like 7-11 to like 11-7. Ottawa and Toronto, I think, are probably going to be in that like 9, 10, 11 win range. And then Montreal is probably going to be in that same range, maybe get to 12-6. And then out west, honestly, besides Calgary, you can make a case for any other team making a leap. You can make a case. Calgary, I don't see it unless Calgary's just got to take advantage of situations. They have to play better situational football. Their week 2 game, they come into Toronto. That's a team that Ryan Dinwiddie has struggled with the last 2 years in Calgary. But I always remember these games. Last year, I wasn't there, but they played really well against Calgary. And then if you remember 2 years ago, it was the CNE game, Javon Leake with the punt return to win the game. Because that's the thing I'll say with Toronto. More than Ryan Dinwiddie, there's 2 coaches on their staff who make that team run like no other. The first is, and I'm going to go different here. I'm going to go special teams first, but Mickey Donovan is special teams coordinator. Special teams matter, folks.
Oh, absolutely.
And Mike Miller.
And I wanted to ask you this too. They signed Grant, which was great. I thought they were going to lose him. Now, what's the deal with Liam and Haggerty, the punter? Because I feel the Argos have one of the best special teams in the CFL with those guys here.
No, they do. Haggerty can boot it. Liam, look, we heard Dinwiddie say that he was a little skittish about throwing him out there towards the end of the first half of the East semi. Bangs that kick through, and once he banged that kick through, there was no looking back. 2 X factors Toronto also has. The other coach, by the way, is Mike Miller, quarterback's coach.
The quarterback, yes, he's done a good job.
Everyone loves him. He's like that whisperer that when Winnipeg asked to interview him for their OC, I was like, oh, I don't want to lose Mike Miller. Thankfully, they kept him and they hired internally for that role. But no, I expect with Toronto as well. I look for Dejan Brissett to take that next step to be a true. I don't know about the number one. I still think Kelly's best weapon is Daniels, like the one he's got the most connection with. It's Daniels and Coxie, but I really look for Dejan to take a leap and be one of those guys, because when you look at the leadership room in this team, even too now, it's Winton, it's Tavares. Last year was Flo. Flo's gone now. So who takes over as that leader? Also, one thing with the D-line too, I look at Derek Parrish to have an expanded role on the defensive line.
Absolutely. Did they lose Polk, the receiver? Did they lose him, or is he still there?
No, he signed with the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay. Thanks for the update.
So he signed with Atlanta. Ralph Hawley signed in Cleveland, but I think if Makai Polk gets cut, I think it could be an Austin Mack situation where we see him back towards the end of August. If he doesn't, like what Matthew Betts did last year with Detroit, where look, he was with Detroit, got cut during training camp, and then he re-signs in BC. And then it's the same thing with Austin Mack too. Austin Mack did get hurt towards the end of the year, though, which Austin Mack is one of the best receivers in the CFL. You can't go against that. But you just have so much. There's so much with this league this year where I know that the NFL always looks for parity, but look, you have the same 2 teams in the Super Bowl you did 2 years ago. I know Winnipeg's been to 5 straight Grey Cups, but this is the first year truly. I have no idea who's going to be in Winnipeg come 9 months from now. I have no wait. 9 months. Jesus, 9 months from now. Who's going to be in Winnipeg come November 16th?
What's your thoughts on the salary cap going up $400,000 for each team? That's positive. That's positive.
League's making money. You know what? You can't ever complain about that. That's the thing. I know everyone's going to look the American listeners are going to look at this and go, oh, this much. It's like, well, yeah, it's like the league's 9 teams. It's not as profitable as the NFL. The NFL's king for a reason. But anytime you're making money and you're expanding revenues, it's great. I just want there to be a commissioner in place. That's the only thing too, because we all know Randy Ambrosie was kind of like quietly kicked out.
What's the latest on that?
I haven't heard anything. I haven't I haven't hearing anything. I'll be honest with you too. I don't really have the sources and the scoops like you see from some of the guys from like Third Down Nation and like Dan Ralph, for example. I don't have like I know some stuff, but like I don't know stuff. Like, the whole expression, like, where the bodies are buried. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
that. But I
yeah.
just like whenever I hear things like look, if I hear stuff, I'll report it. Or because look, with the main thing I hear about is just Argos news. Once people resign, we kind of get the notice like a couple minutes before it goes out. Just the press release emails from Chris. But besides that, it's like nothing.
Because
I don't know.
the next commissioner this league has been talking about expanding since 1984, and they still have the same amount of teams as they did back in the 50s, 9 teams. You don't want to go to a market where it's going to fail and be a flop, or that U.S. experiment, which was a disaster. But I really feel this league could use a 10th team, and it's just a matter of finding the right location and the right ownership. It just would balance the league out, in my opinion, and get rid of those crossovers.
So there is one. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's been the rumor mill that London may be heating up for that. I know everyone's looking at Quebec City or Halifax, but London, Ontario is a name that's kind of popped up out of nowhere for a team. I don't know how well it would work though, because I think London. I don't know about Guelph, but like, because you're in Guelph, I'm obviously the next region
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
It's mainly Tiger Town out this way. Like once you hit past the GTA, it's like once you get there, like Hamilton, obviously Burlington, Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, London, all that stuff. Brantford, even, it's a lot more Tiger fans than Argo fans. So that's the thing too, where it's like, how a while back there was that rumor that Bon Jovi and MLSC were going to buy the Bills and move them to Toronto.
Yep.
Like, I know my answer. Like, but would you have dropped your Eagles allegiance to root for the Toronto team?
No, no, no.
See, I'm the same. So that's why I think if you are going to expand, you need to go to a market that, like you said, A, can work, B, will sell tickets, because that's the biggest thing right now with the CFL. Because even we saw towards the end of last season, Hamilton's attendance fell off the second they stopped. They were like out. Like when, like I remember the one I didn't go to Labor Day, but I was at the game in July where Toronto was there, and they were saying how low like it was 22K, but for them that's a low amount of people. And the other thing too is just it's going to be consistent and working. And also here's the other one too, a place where players want to go and live. Because that's the thing too.
I think Quebec would be better. Quebec City,
Yep.
because Quebec is a great football province. The Alouettes are stabilized,
The
and
Caravan.
I really think having a second team in Quebec, I really feel Quebec would be a good team. And also, I want to get your thoughts, Griff, on this. The National Lacrosse League has 14 teams, and they're having a united standings. Only top 8 out of the playoffs get into the playoffs. 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7. The CFL, do they really need an East-West division? Or why don't they just go to a 9-team league, and it's basically I just think they should look at going to a unified standing thing like the National Lacrosse League did.
So I think because of I know like lacrosse is different and everything like that. I just like the fact that I think it would make things more interesting. I just think right now because you have the whole divisional alignment. Because imagine this where it's like for a one game, because I know lacrosse it's a series for playoffs. It's not just one game elimination.
The first round is only one game. The first round is win or go home, and then the second and third round is best of threes.
Okay. But even say, for example, like a one game playoff for football, a game that's a lot of preparation, a lot of travel, a lot of preparedness. Imagine if you're the BC Lions and you have to travel, say, instead of either someone's coming to you or you're going to someone's coming to you or you're going to them. Imagine the difference between going to like Calgary or Edmonton in the playoffs compared to going all the way to Montreal, going to Ottawa for the playoffs. That's my thing there, because that's a competitive disadvantage, in my opinion, especially just because I know
Yeah.
lacrosse and football, both very physical sports, but both very different in that sense. So that's why I don't know if exactly would work. I think it would have a lot of pushback, but I think it's one of those things where it's, hey, if you open your mind to it, they could make it work. I think it's just
The
up to
only
the
the
league.
only drawback, like you said, Griff, is the travel costs would be more than it would be now. But I just think it would make every game even more important than it is now. I just think the divisions, it's just I don't know. I think they should try it for 1 year, Griff. Try it for 1 year and see how it is.
You could test drive it. I just think too it have to get approved from the players as well. That's the big thing.
Yes,
The Players
absolutely, yeah.
Association would have
Yeah.
to sign off on it
Yeah.
because. And I want to get your opinion on this because we all know that I don't know if you saw this, but the dates for the upcoming Super Bowls were announced. So as you know, this Super Bowl 59, I'm gonna pull them up right here. Okay, all my Googling is literally about colors because I was trying to figure out what color is the Gatorade going to be. So this Sunday's obviously the 9th, February 9th is coming Sunday. Next year is February 8th. But 2 years from now is Jesus Christ, 2 years from now it's on Valentine's Day, February 14th.
They're really pushing it back because I remember, Griff, when I was younger, the Super Bowl used to be in the middle of January.
Oh, and then also to February 13th for and then it's February 13th for it's family day it's Valentine's Day for there. But then here's the thing too. You know how I said Sunday, February 14th is the Super Bowl for that day? You know, the next day for us and the States is President's Day for them and it's family day for us. So it is that day where and I'm so excited to say this, that it's finally on a holiday to where that Monday, you don't have to worry about going back to work. You don't have to worry about anything else. You can just decompress and relax after watching the Super Bowl. Or if you're a fan of the team who's won, you can have a little extra fun without having to worry about the repercussions the next morning. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is the fact that the NFL's looking to push to an 18th game. But there's the concern of only one bye week. Why is it that with certain things like the kickoff and the schedule, the CFL's gotten it right, where the kickoff, no one gets hurt, they don't do any silly rules. And then with the CFL, they've been playing 18 games forever and they've made
since
it work.
1986.
Since 1986.
86, they went to an 18 game.
Because there's 3 bye weeks.
Yeah.
About every 2 months, you get a bye week. Toronto's this year, one is in July. One's the very last week of the season, which could be important for the playoffs, especially if they have guys banged up. And the other one is right after Labor Day as well, which they've had to have the last couple of years turnarounds where they play Monday and then they play again on Saturday. With the NFL, why can't they just say, hey, we're going to give you an extra week off? Because I'll say this right now, if they do an 18th game with only one bye week, for the love of the game and for as much as I love this game, that's just not safe for the players.
Griff, I already talked to some guys connected with the NFL, and they said, look, the players are not going to agree to an 18th game unless they get that second bye week. And right now, they should have at least, to me, I think if you're going to play 18 football games in the regular season, 3 bye weeks. You know, the lacrosse league, they only play 18 games, okay? They have 3 bye weeks. And lacrosse is just a physical sport as football, from what I see. To me, the CFL has done that right. The NFL, to give these guys only one bye week, is a joke, in my opinion. And to me, if the NFL wants to go to 18 games, the Players Association should say, we want 3 bye weeks and spread it out, in my opinion. That's how I see it.
Because we do know that the Players Association does have to sign off on this, like they did going 6, because we all knew this. 16 to 17 was just a gateway to get to 18, and I firmly believe that they're going to get to 20 one day. I think that's a long way away, but we all know that's going to happen because, look, as soon as we saw the dates, the fact that it goes from February, instead of being the first or second Sunday, like I know the 14th to the 13th is the second, but the fact that that's there, you can push it off to there. My only thing now with the 18th game and this 2 bye weeks, and this ties to Canada because if you start the season a week early in the NFL, for the CFL consumer, that really kills the vibe of what is known as the CFL's biggest non-championship Sunday weekend in the Grey Cup. Because, folks, Labor Day weekend for the CFL is what the NFL Day's Thanksgiving Day is. It's where the season truly starts, and it's when you have the 3. And I love the fact they're doing this year, that they're not just throwing in a random game. It's just the 3 rivalry games. But, that's the thing with that. I don't want it to kill the Labor Day momentum when you have Saskatchewan and Winnipeg buried in with a CFL slate, because you also can't move up Labor Day because it's not on Labor Day and it kills it. So for the CFL NFL purposes, it is at a crossroads.
Absolutely. And Griff, it's kind of funny that we're doing the show tonight because Nick's going to be on my show tomorrow night. The live with CDP at 7:30. So anyone out here that wants to talk Argonauts football or CFL with Nick and me will be on tomorrow night, 7:30 on all these major social media platforms. If you didn't mind me plugging my show, Griff.
Oh, you know what? No. I'll put it in the link in the bio. But you know what? That's just the only thing I wanted to say with 18 games, just because, like we said, the CFL makes that's
Yep.
where everyone's like, oh, 18th game, this. I'm like you said, the CFL's made it work for almost 40 years, and
Yeah, 1986.
you haven't heard a
No.
peep from any single player. Meanwhile, with the NFL, like we say too, I know the Sunday to Thursday thing's very controversial when I've seen Monday to Friday turnarounds in the CFL. It's just my only thing is that with that, I know dollars are there and the revenue is going to be there, but you have to put the player safety first if you're truly serious about player safety, because you can't just say, oh, hey, we care about you. It's kind of like when your work is like, oh, hey, you know what? Everyone did well this year. Instead of giving you a bonus, here's a pizza party. It's kind of that same logic where
Yep.
you
Yep.
have to reward the players for literally putting their bodies on the line.
Yep. And if you play the game of football, it's tough enough to. It's like, hey, lacrosse. The Buffalo Bandits now are going to have to play a lot of back-to-back lacrosse games. And one of the guys spoke to me. He said, "Look, just playing one lacrosse game a week is hard enough, but playing back-to-back is really brutal. It tests your depth, and also the more games you compress into a schedule, it's hard on these guys, and you're going to see more injuries. So." I don't like teams having to play 2 games in 5 days. I'm sorry. I know it's based on TV, dictates a lot of the schedule nowadays. But if they really cared about these players, they won't let them play 2 games in 5 days or whatever, or 3 in 9 days.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because even this year too, we saw with like the teams playing on Christmas Day this year, where it was like 3 games in like 11 days, which for football is insanity. Meanwhile, last year, like the Calgary Stampeders had their bye week the week before Labor Day, and were technically off for, I think it was like 17 days between games, which is pretty crazy. So that's the thing. That's just the thing I have to say with that. I had to get that off my chest. And I know you're the person I can talk to where it's like you're going to know exactly where I'm coming from when it comes to a CFL NFL crossover. But we're now going to cross back to the NFL track, because before I get done, I've been asking guests this week who they think is going to win. I don't need to ask you that question, but I want you to answer this for me. The Philadelphia Eagles will win Super Bowl 59 because of blank.
I think because of their MVP, Saquon Barkley. I feel he's going to have 150 yards, and I feel Devontae Smith's going to have a big game. But I really feel Saquon Barkley is going to be their MVP, and I just feel their defense is going to force Mahomes into some mistakes. I got the Eagles winning this game, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I think the Eagles are going to win this game 34-20, and Saquon Barkley is going to cap off his season with an MVP trophy. Josh Allen can keep the regular season MVP. I'd rather have Saquon Barkley win the championship and MVP, and he's going to break Terrell Davis's record if he can get 30 yards, which he should, to have the greatest season rushing in NFL history. And you know what? Some people don't like running the ball. The Eagles are successful when they do that. And Jalen Hurts does not need to throw for 400 or 500 yards. He gets criticized, but they have so many weapons on offense and they're well balanced. They don't need to throw the ball 400 yards. And Devontae Smith said that today. If our running game is moving the ball and Saquon Barkley is doing what he's doing, we don't need to go crazy. So I just think they're going to cap the season off with a Super Bowl win, 34-20, and I think Barkley's going to win MVP.
Do you have an X factor for the game?
Jalen Carter, I think the big nose tackle out of Georgia. I think he's going to have a big game against Kansas City's offensive line. I really think Philly's defensive line has got a huge advantage over the Chiefs' offensive line, in my opinion.
I think a big thing that's going to have to happen as well is you're going to have Creed Humphrey wedge blocking with Mike Caliendo, because look, Mike Caliendo can't do it by himself. They had to kick Tooney out to left tackle for a reason. Trey Smith can handle his own, but I think Creed Humphrey is going to have to be a big factor if they want to stop Jalen Carter come Sunday night.
Yeah, and I just feel the Eagles secondary but they have a great secondary. Their linebackers are good. They're coming into this game healthy. That bye week, I used to be one of the critics about we don't need a bye week for the Super Bowl, but the Eagles did get banged up in the championship game against Commanders, and that extra week gave Cam Jordan's their center some time to recover. Landon Dickerson, who's got a knee injury, and Jalen Hurts has an injury. So, and AJ Brown, the first 2 games he was hurt as well. So you know what? I will never complain about having an extra bye week off before Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah, no, I won't either. Obviously, look, the CFL doesn't have the bye week, but that's different because there's only 2, potentially 3 games to play. The big thing too with because I think years ago, the bye week didn't used to happen. It used to be championship weekend, championship Sunday, and then you go right into the Super Bowl. I think when the Patriots won their first one in 2001, that happened. That was still a thing.
The only time it was only 1 week from what I remember was Super Bowl 25, the Bills in Tampa Bay. They had the Iran war there, and they made it a 1 week where there was no bye week. But I find the Super Bowl most of the times it has been 2 weeks. And another reason the NFL does it, it's not because of player safety, it's because it gives the league another week to hype up the big game. So that's why the NFL does the 2 weeks. It's not because of the players, it's because the corporate machine wants that extra week to hype it up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Before we wrap up today, you plug your show for tomorrow night, but if people want to follow you on social media, because we know you're all over the social media landscape.
I lost my TikTok.
Your first time guest. This is your first time being a guest. Plug yourself.
I lost my TikTok page. They took it away from me. So I'm back on TikTok, but I'm live with CDP. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, X, everywhere. And my show is available on YouTube. And my website is beacons.ai/Chris Pomay. All my social media sites are there. And all my game night stories are there as well. And I'm all over the place. And I have 3 shows that I do. And I love doing what I'm doing, and I'm working hard to get my show on another radio station. And fingers crossed, I've got an opportunity coming up, and hopefully it works out.
Fantastic, Chris. Well, anyway, hopefully, you know what, for the sake of the show and everything, because like I said, I got to say this right now. I have Andrew Patterson from Winnipeg Sports Talk coming on tomorrow, as he is a Chiefs fan, so we're going to discuss that. So I get both ends of the spectrum with this game. But anyway, Chris, we'll see you Sunday. Hopefully, for your sake, you're, in about 96 hours. How many hours are we away? Let's see. So it's 24, 48, 32, 96. About 120-ish hours or so away from now. You are, climbing a light pole somewhere in the 519 region. But anyway, we'll see you around soon. It was a pleasure getting to do this, folks. Episode number 346 of YWC Football Talk is in the bag. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Congrats, Griff. Thanks, Griff.